Hello and welcome to this evening's episode of On the Record. My name is Vuyo Mvogo. On tonight's show,
you're a broken man presiding over a broken society.
There's a broken president in a broken country, you know? My babo.
Well, hours before Parliament debates last Thursday's State of the Nation address, we asked former senior MPs about their thoughts, their views, but also to share with us what goes into a day like the one we are going to witness tomorrow. But also, newly appointed DA mayoral candidate for Cape Town, Patricia de Lille, weighs in on the One Capital City debate, smelling a rat.
I will never undermine their intelligence because they know exactly what they want. They will vote for a party that can put a plan before them, that they can see that that plan will in fact help them to improve their own lives.
Well, for the second State of the Nation address in a row, last Thursday's sitting wasn't short of drama. From COPE leader Musiwa Likota's lone walk to the EFF's honoring of its own promise to share the stage with President Jacob Zuma. In the end, though, the president eventually delivered his speech, and tomorrow, members of parliament will debate the address. So what really goes into preparing to do battle for your party on a day like tomorrow? What are the considerations? And to help us understand some of it, we are joined via Skype by former ANC MP Professor Ben Turok, and a little later we'll be joined by former DA MP Wilmot James. If I may start with you, Prof. Well, you saw what went on in Parliament on Thursday. Your thoughts?
Well, it was fairly chaotic, as we expected. And it dragged on a bit, I thought, the whole point of order business. But, you know, people are upset, people are angry, people are disappointed in what the president has done with the Nkandla affair, and they will use what opportunity that is available to them. I must say it is a bit tiresome, but on the other hand, I appreciate that people are very upset and very angry, including, I would say, in the ANC.
When you say it's tiresome, if I may start there, what could, the opposition parties that did, COPE leader Musiwa Likota and then the EFF later, what could they have done which would have allowed them to make whatever point they wanted to make, but without it being as chaotic and tiresome?
Well, what I found tiresome is the repetition of the points of order. You know, they made their point and they made their argument, and to continue was actually harassing Parliament. And I also think that the Speaker did not handle it all that well. She was not decisive, and she did engage in long discussions with Malema and others, as Naledi Pandor pointed out. And that dragged on the proceedings. I must say we are in a situation where there is a lot of frustration around. The Nkandla business is frustrating everybody. And I imagine it's pretty tough to be in the cabinet these days, as you will see tomorrow. Because tomorrow, members of cabinet and senior members of the ANC are going to have to explain why they took such a strong position in saying that the president does not need to pay back and that Tuli Madonsela was wrong. They went all the way with committees and reports and whatnot in defense of that position, and that position has collapsed. So I think that the ANC is going to be very embarrassed. You know, these debates, and I have been there for 20 years, these debates are very tense. Firstly, the media are there paying attention to every word you say. Secondly, the opposition is just waiting to shout at you and to pull you apart and to reply. And even the president is going to respond to your points if they're points worth making. So it's pretty tense, and you spend a fair amount of time preparing your speech. And if you've got a good case and something to argue, then you can be convincing, and you might even enjoy the occasion. I must admit, there are occasions when I enjoyed speaking in Parliament. I sometimes had quite a bit of fun. But when the situation is fraught with difficulty, because the position that your party took very strongly in Parliament, with committees, with evidence, with hearings, with inspections, I mean, gosh, the amount of energy that went into defending the president over Nkandla is huge. And now the embarrassment to be left in the lurch is very, very awkward.
Now, say you were still an MP and you were drafted to speak tomorrow. What would be going through your mind on a day like today, the night before the day you're supposed to go out there and defend whatever position your party would have taken, and given the set of circumstances that we have as we speak?
Well, I have never been a yes man, and I've never been, and I disagreed with the party from time to time. If it was very awkward, I'd rather keep quiet. I'd rather talk about other matters. And in the president's debate, one doesn't have to talk about Nkandla. You can talk about many things. And I suspect that a lot of the ANC MPs will avoid talking about Nkandla. They will talk about the economics and this and that. In other words, they will dodge. But you see, the problem with dodging in a situation like that is, firstly, the opposition is catcalling, is yelling at you, and it's very difficult to avoid answering them. You can't ignore. Very difficult to ignore. And even then, even if you manage to get away with dodging the issue of Nkandla and talk about economic policy, for example, the speaker immediately after you, if he's opposition, whatever party, whether it's Terra Lakota or anybody else, is going to tear into you and say, you as an MP of the ANC did not deal with a major issue before the House, which is the integrity of the president and his honesty. And that is a denial of your oath of office, of your allegiance to the Constitution. So you didn't do your job as an MP. You might have done your job as a member of the ANC, but you didn't do your job as a member of Parliament. And after all, it is a major debate. It's a parliamentary debate. You're in front of the nation. And I would hate to be accused of avoiding talking about an issue, the integrity of the president, for example. And I would find it very difficult. And I think what I would do in that case, it would say, well, I have my own opinion on this matter. My opinion doesn't accord with that position taken by Parliament previously in the committees and in the reports. And I regret to say that I always disagreed. From the beginning, I said the president must pay. I said that about a year ago, maybe more. I said, in fact, the newspapers reported me. I said, be a sport and pay up. That was to the president. It was a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but I meant it. And I thought, to avoid a huge row in the Constitutional Court and the Public Protector and everything we've been through, if he had offered to pay a nominal amount for the non-security upgrades, we would have been at peace and tomorrow would have been a non-event. But he refused to pay. It seems, according to the press, that he even ignored the advice from the National Executive Committee. And so we've landed in an awful, sordid mess.
But to what extent, Prof, should people like you actually take responsibility? If clearly, if you didn't speak, you weren't loud enough, or if you, I mean, to what extent would you take responsibility?
Well, I would, and I have done on occasions, and notably on the information bill. I didn't vote, and I got into trouble for that. I think I've always expressed my views. In caucus, I spoke out. That was the right place to speak out on these matters. Every Thursday, all the ANC MPs meet in caucus, and that is when there is an opportunity to speak your mind and even to be critical, and even of the president, although you do it gently and politely and with respect. And we don't do name calling if we can avoid it. So we leave that to the EFF and others. So yes, I did speak up in caucus, but I must admit that once you accept the mantle of being an ANC MP, there is the question of loyalty. There is the question of defending, even because that is the party that put you in office, and you are required to toe the line. But even within the aspect of towing the line, there are opportunities, like in caucus and elsewhere, to speak up, to be critical, and so on, and even in the extreme, to speak up in Parliament. And I suspect that one or two or maybe more MPs are going to, ANC MPs, are going to tomorrow and the next day say that they were always uncomfortable with the decisions of the committee, which was appointed on 2 occasions to look into the Encounter affair, and they will say they had reservations, but being loyal and being members of the party, they did not want to raise them too strongly in the public arena. I think they may say that. In fact, if some of them don't, it's going to sound pretty awful.
In the 20-odd years that you were an MP, how often did MPs actually stand up, to the leadership, or like really raise their concerns, even if it meant like really breaking ranks with the party and being unpopular? How often did that happen in reality?
In private, it happened quite often. Well, not often, but it happened enough. In private, I mean within the ANC conferences, in caucus on a Thursday morning, people would express. I remember MPs speaking out very strongly on the AIDS issue when Thabo Mbeki was president. There were members who spoke very strongly, including doctors, who spoke very strongly on the AIDS issue in caucus. He ignored them. He didn't pay attention, but they did come out. And every now and again, there are issues on which MPs will speak up in caucus. But in the House, you are actually obliged to toe the line. And if you don't toe the line, you're going to resign. You know, the rule is that if a member of parliament either votes against the ruling party, or indeed the opposition, if you vote against your own party, then the language is they withdraw the whip. Once they withdraw the whip, you're no longer a member of that party in parliament, and therefore you lose your seat. So the consequences are quite drastic. So before you do anything like that, you think very hard. I must tell you that in the case of the information bill, I thought very, very hard about what position I would take. As it happens, I was very well informed about the whole process. I was paying attention for a year to the legislation as it was developing. And on the morning of the sitting of Parliament, I phoned 2 top constitutional lawyers. And I said to them, I'm in a bind, a difficulty. I don't know what to do this afternoon. Is this bill constitutional? And they both said, it is not. So I took my decision. I did not vote against. I walked out. So I dissociated myself from that bill. It may happen that tomorrow and the next day, some MPs will play sick. Some will find a way of not being present. Some may even just go and have tea. You see, the crucial moment is not only the speech making, but the vote, because you have to vote. And that's when you put your mark, whether you support the motion before the House, etc. So it's quite difficult terrain, and you have to decide, and you have to know what the consequences are. The consequences are that you're going to lose your job and that you will no longer be an MP. If you vote against the president, that is guaranteed. I can tell you this. If any ANC MP votes against the motion tomorrow or on the next day, or dissociates themselves strongly, they will lose their seat.
Now, Prof, did that, speaking of which, did that particular episode of the so-called secrecy bill where you abstained, I mean, the first time around, did that teach you anything you didn't know or perhaps took for granted in, post-1994 politics?
Well, I've always been a loyal member of the ANC, and I'm still a member of the ANC. And I really have great store by the organization. It has a wonderful history. And frankly, my own life, the whole life, has been in the ANC. And it's very difficult to turn my back on it. So I remain a nominal member of the ANC. I go to occasional meetings, but I have no functions, no official title, and just virtually hanging there for, if you like, sentiment reasons. But I do not hesitate, as I'm doing now, to criticize the ANC, to find fault, because things are going wrong. You know, the important thing is this. In 1994, we were all really overwhelmed by the whole experience of democracy, Mandela, and all that. The whole country was mesmerized. We were mesmerized by, the RDP and the new policies, and of course the Madiba magic and so on. So, but gradually I began to have slightly different views, especially on the economy. I was in the Finance Committee for 10 years, and I was in the Trade and Industry Committee for 15 years. And on the financial side, I began to have worries that we were adopting rather austerity kind of policies. We were very cautious. And I believe that the current crisis that we face is partly a result of the very cautious positions we took in the 1990s. And I feel exonerated. And I find that what the IMF is saying now, and Christine Lagarde, the president, about excessively cautious policies, vindicates what I said over those years. So I feel quite comfortable in myself. And I said it. You see, in the Finance Committee, as in all committees, you have a great deal of freedom to criticize. You ask in the plenary, you're much more cautious, and because the TV cameras are on you and the press are on you, and it's all very much in the public domain. But in committees, you're able to criticize and disagree, and that's where you have a great deal of freedom as an MP. Of course, when the voting comes, you vote according to the party line. But in the discussions, in the committees, in the portfolio committees, you have a great deal of scope to express yourself and to disagree, and even attack the officials and even the minister who comes and says various things. You are able to disagree very strongly, and I've done so on many occasions. It's only in the House, in plenary, which is what you're talking about tomorrow, where things are much more difficult and embarrassing if you criticize too strongly.
In as few words as possible, Prof, what would be your advice to your erstwhile colleagues as they start that debate and as they begin defending the ANC tomorrow afternoon when the debate starts?
I think they should be honest. They should be honest and in public say, we took a position which seems to have been mistaken. And anybody can make a mistake. We followed a particular line, and we were wrong. And the president has now taken a position where he admits culpability on Nkandla, and we welcome that and let the matter be closed.
Professor Turok, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ben Turok, former ANC MP, sharing his insights in the 20-odd years that he was an MP, how a day like tomorrow, or perhaps a night like tonight, would be like as one, if one was to be drafted to go and speak on behalf of their party. After this short ad break, we will be speaking to another former MP. Wilmot James is a former Democratic Alliance MP. He'll be joining us after this short break.
And I'm Prabhakshini Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and House of Bush in Bev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful.
Have you ever considered skin bleaching? Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
And I'm Prabhakshini Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and House of Bush in Bev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful.
Have you ever considered skin bleaching? Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Record for the second State of the Nation address in a row. Last Thursday's sitting was, of course, full of drama. We saw COPE leader Musiwa Lekota's lone walk. We also saw the EFF honoring its promise to share the stage with President Jacob Zuma. In the end, of course, President Zuma eventually delivering his speech. And tomorrow, members of Parliament will debate that address. So the question we're trying to get answered is what really goes into preparing to do battle for your party on a day like tomorrow? What do you have to consider? Earlier, we spoke to former MP, ANC MP Ben Turok, and we are now joined from our Cape Town studios by the DA's Professor Wilmot James. Prof, thanks very much for joining us. Now, here you are. You guys are getting ready to do battle tomorrow. Your leader having raised some of the issues outside on the steps of Parliament, the objections that they had even during that chaotic period before both the COPE leader and members of the EFF left the chamber. What is preoccupying the Democratic Alliances, the minds of Democratic Alliance MPs as they prepare to go and speak tomorrow in Parliament?
Well, thank you for that question. Let me say that in case the viewers think that I'm no longer an MP, I'm still an MP. I'm no longer the chairman of the DA. So I just wanted to put that on the record, and I am speaking on Wednesday in the State of the Nation address response on behalf of my party. So, you know, the principal function of Parliament is to exact accountability from the executive and to discuss legislation. The State of the Nation address is about executive accountability of the highest order, because what the nation wants to see and hear is an authentic description of the issues that affect the nation. So they would want their president to reflect publicly in the company of all public representatives what is at the heart of what worries and concerns the nation. And at the top of that is the fact that this president lied. That is to say, he stood up in Parliament, you will recall in the past, where he said that the money that was used to finance Nkandla came from a homeowner's bond that he had taken out. Now, we suspect that was not true, but clearly that was obviously today a lie. So you have a president who on record actually has lied to the nation, and there are lots of people who were invested in defending him to protect him. And that has now fallen apart. And the failure is not just a political failure, it's a moral failure. It's a constitutional failure with major moral implications. And so what we have is a president that lacks moral standing in the nation, we believe, certainly from the point of view of the opposition parties, and increasingly within his own party, he now is seen as a moral failure. And that's a hell of a thing to happen to a president of a country such as ours. So what we are now doing is getting ready to respond to his address. It's a State of the Nation address that was monotonic. You don't know what it is the president felt passionate about. I sort of cringe for some of his ministers, especially Minister Pravin Gordhan, who must have had a hand in some of the remarks he made about the economy, and some of those remarks were actually very good. But he showed no inclination, no literary flair, no sense of excitement and passion about some key points that should have been emphasized. It was monotonic. It dealt with the economy largely, and he said absolutely nothing at all about his failures, his missteps, and he could have couched it in a way that perhaps was diplomatic, but he had no acknowledgement whatsoever about the most important thing that people are aggrieved about, and that is his failure to honor his oath as president of the country. It's a constitutional failure, and it's a moral failure because it's so fundamentally dishonest. And this dishonesty is public, and he has used taxpayers' money in the millions to defend his actions over the last 2 years. And so you see a history of the misspending of taxpayers' money to defend the private urge of a president to keep things hidden from public view. I suppose a lot of that has to do with his history as head of intelligence in MK, which is all about secrecy. It's all about making deals behind the backs of others. And that style of being utterly unaccountable, and in fact to sneer at a nation to the point of insulting a nation by not owning up to what was a major failure, moral failure in judgment. So I think the stakes are extremely high. And you will see in the response on the part of political parties an effort to exact proper accountability, because presently the offer to pay back some of the money is simply not enough, that he would have to say that he, in fact, did not uphold his oath as president, and that in not confirming the powers and responsibilities of the public protector and confirming that, what is offered is simply not enough. And so it's going to be quite a rough debate. And in preparing for that debate, opposition parties must both exact accountability and keep that pressure on. At the same time, opposition parties mustn't get entirely stuck on that issue. They must also look at the nation and say, we believe we have a much better offer. And the DA certainly believes we have a much better offer to the nation in terms of how we would run this country if we were there.
Are there no other issues that you believe deserve just as much attention as the Nkandla issue? Or is the Nkandla issue the one issue that you simply cannot afford to ignore? And if it means devoting the entire time that you'll be allocated on it, so be it. Is that your strategy?
No, it's not. I think that the Nkandla issue is a rule of law issue. It is a constitutional question because it has to do with the responsibilities and powers of the public protector. And so it's bigger than Nkandla because it deals with some difficulties in terms of upholding the Constitution and the President honoring the rule of law, which he ought to do. So that's why it's a very important issue. The second issue, clearly, the President's address, which has to do with the economy. And we believe that the approach to economic policy followed by the ANC has been confused and incoherent. It's not a strategic approach to how you grow the economy. And the President admitted as much, that they have not taken responsibility on a national level for how the economy has to be geared and driven. The key questions has to do with unemployment, which stays very high. It's difficult to crack that, but you need a strategy and plan to crack it. So the economy clearly is a key issue. As part of that, we clearly have to look at the education system. There's been a crisis in higher education. The higher education system is really struggling. Universities are really struggling to deal with the beginning of the academic year, and they need enormous assistance. And I'm afraid higher education and the Minister of Higher Education, Bladen Zamandi, has not done a good job at all in terms of that requires attention. The education system itself, basic education, wasn't even mentioned by the President. He didn't say anything about that. And yet that, of course, is of great importance. He said a few things about health, not very much, but he did mention health. Health needs attention in terms of what we need to discuss. And I can think of local government questions, which, of course, is a basis for the election coming up in August, we believe, that the whole question of local government and municipal performance in dealing with the basic functions of municipalities, which I think has been very uneven, and so on. So there's a range of issues that require attention, because we must always keep our focus on what the nation's needs are. The nation's needs are to do with the need for jobs, for excellent education, for proper service delivery, and for good governance. So I think those are the spread of questions.
What new issues will you be putting on the table beyond restating your previous positions? In other words, what is there for the ordinary South African to listen to that will be new and that will take these debates to a much higher level?
You see what we have become. We've become stuck in a mode where and it's a very easy mode to get stuck into, where the ANC is so bad it's very easy to criticize it. And I think what we have to do is look beyond the ANC in terms of its policies, and be able to make an offer that is credible to the nation when it comes to the things that you actually can control. And in the case of the Democratic Alliance, which is the official opposition, and also in government in the Western Cape, the city of Cape Town, and 26 municipalities, heading into an election, we can show that on the basis of real experience, that we can run an economy better, that we can run a very good school system. And in fact, the schooling system for the Western Cape is really excellent. It can do a lot better, but it's really in good shape. That our health system functions in such a manner that we have the lowest maternal mortality rate in the country, and that our service delivery, when it comes to municipal questions, is among the best in the country in almost every quarter. So that's our offer, and we can certainly put that to the nation, not as a paper offer, I mean, the EFF offers paper things. They don't offer real things. And other parties offer paper things and policies that are constructed behind desks that have not been tested. We can offer tried and tested policies because we have a history of governance. And there's enough examples for us to show South Africans that if we were in government, we would do a much better job than the ANC.
And you will be able to do all these things, put your alternatives on the table without being stuck on criticizing the ANC, without really making sure that your positions, your alternative policies are being put out there in front of the nation, and they are very clear.
Well, that is the approach we've taken. We are a constitutional party. We believe in the supremacy of the Constitution, and we believe firmly in the rule of law and in our justice system that must be fair and equal in terms of how they treat citizens, and we are committed to upholding that. And within that framework, we think that South Africans deserve a better life, and we think that we are able to, in fact, make a promise based on our experience and our commitments and our energy levels to run the education system better, to run a better health system, and to be able to run clean government, and make an economy grow. So I believe that's a good offer to put to the nation, and you have to have that kind of balance as a credible opposition party, because if you want people to believe that you are able to run a country better, you need to give some evidence. So it's both to critique the ANC, which we will, for sure, but we will put our offer on the table as well.
Mr. Wilmot James, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
It's a great pleasure.
Wilmot James, DAMP, taking us through just some of the issues they hope to raise tomorrow and how they hope to raise them, and the impact that those engagements, he thinks those engagements will have moving forward. Well, we're going to take another quick ad break, and when we come back, we're going to give you an interview we had earlier from first in the series of interviews that we're going to have as election period begins. That's after this short break.
Manor produces abstract and symbolic works of art. He called his latest collection Vote with Ink, Not Blood.
Praying for peace, literally, in my own way.
The South African film titled Luister or Listen in Afrikaans tackles issues of race in the country.
I think that the end goal is the reformation of institutional culture, but how we get there is in fact through changing the language policy so that no student is forced to learn in Afrikaans.
It's fashion designers like Julian Poko who are starting to pay more attention to menswear and hope to make a mark in the fashion industry.
So regardless of whether you're African, European, there's certain styles that you like. So if an African man enjoys wearing simple, well-tailored pants, then yes, I guess.
Join Refulo Mula for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. Well, since the dawn of democracy, South Africa has had two capitals, Cape Town, the seat of parliament, and Pretoria, which has been the administrative center of power. Now, in his State of the Nation address on Thursday, the president proposed the scrapping of the dual capital model asking Parliament to consider this question. Now, this has been met since then. His comments have been met with multiple reactions on a number of fronts, with some applauding the President and seeing this as a step towards cutting down expenses and tightening the belt during these tough economic times. Well, earlier this evening, I spoke to the Mayor of Cape Town, Patricia de Lille, not only about this issue, but also about how she hopes to play the game beyond this point, since she has been announced as the DA's mayoral candidate for the Metro of Cape Town. That's our first in a series of interviews we're going to have as we go towards that election. And that's what I'm going to leave you with from me. It's good night. Do join us again tomorrow night when we bring you the highlights of that much-awaited SONA debate. From me, it's a goodbye for tonight.
I was not completely surprised, because the issue really is not whether we need to move the capital. The issue really is that the President must reduce the size of his cabinet. During Mbeki and Nelson Mandela, we had the cabinet the size of 28 members, including deputies. We now have a cabinet comprising of 74 ministers and deputy ministers. That is costing South Africa 4.4 million rand per day. It's costing us 2 million rand per day also for VIP security. So it goes without saying, Vuyo, that the President must reduce the size of his cabinet, and then he will definitely save money. Cape Town has got a lot of history attached to Parliament, new history. It was here in Cape Town when Nelson Mandela spent 27 years on Robben Island. From here in Cape Town where he made his first free speech. He's also a freeman of the city of Cape Town. It's here in Cape Town where we adopted the first constitution on the 8th of May 1996.
But we don't need to have a parliament, with due respect, to commemorate those events, do we?
No, I'm not saying that we need a parliament. I'm saying there's a lot of history attached to Cape Town. But also, Vuyo, we have got 3 parliamentary villages for 400 members of parliament that is being maintained and serviced by a parliament. So they've got houses already. If you move parliament, then you have to find and build new parliamentary villages. The President was complaining about ministers and what they have to spend on ministers to have houses both in Cape Town and in Pretoria. So therein lies the answer to the President.
But assuming you are correct,
yes.
Why does it have to be one or the other? In other words, why can't both points be made? That perhaps the President needs to reduce the number of members of the executive that is got, but at the same time entertain the idea, which it must be said is a plausible one, that we need to have, perhaps we need to have one capital, not 2.
But Vuyo, the fact of the matter is executive members and cabinet members serve the country on a national basis. Members of parliament, it's a national parliament. So it doesn't matter really where you put parliament. There will still be travel. There will still be 2 homes. The case that we are making is that currently we have homes that were built for members of parliament. We have homes that were built for ministers in the city of Cape Town. So if you keep it here in Cape Town, it goes without saying that you're going to save more money than taking it to Pretoria, having to build a new parliament, having to build new offices for the executive. But the executive must also learn that you've got technology today. You don't need to travel with trunks from Pretoria with brown files anymore. You can simply just have all your stuff on a computer. And so really, government must become more efficient and effective and cut down on all the fat.
And the same arguments can be made against Cape Town.
Well, I certainly agree with you. The arguments can be made against Cape Town, but at the moment, Cape Town has got the facilities. So why, if you claim that you are going to cut costs, want to move a parliament, build a new parliament, build new parliamentary villages, build new homes for the ministers? It's going to be 10 times more expensive, Vuyo. We certainly have to cut costs other places. One of the other places where government can cut costs is that they must stop bailing out South African Airways and all the state-owned enterprises. They're bailing out SAA every year, which means they are subsidizing rich people that are using those planes. They can cut a lot of fat by trimming down the number of cabinet ministers, because in any case, they are not more effective with service delivery. So there are many other ways, Vuyo. The wage bill for the public service is currently more than 40% of our income. So I am saying we've got a history in South Africa that we come together, we sit together, we debate these issues, and then we reach consensus. And as the City of Cape Town, we are prepared to come to the table to state our case.
Well, I'm sure we will, get that opportunity. But how are you going to prove to other people that you're not looking at this selfishly, but you are really helping everyone look into the issue of cutting the costs, which we all have to commit to?
Yes, we all have to commit to the costs, but what I can tell you, Vuyo, is in 1997, a report was done about what it will cost the country. Again, in 2009, a panel led by the then Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe. So the evidence is there. We don't need to start all over. That's why I was quite, in a way, surprised that President Zuma could raise this issue again as a cost-cutting measure, when in fact we have seen the two reports that were produced in the past.
Do you think there's a, shall we call it, a political conspiracy? In other words, this Cape Town is being disadvantaged because it is not being run by the ANC, as some members of your party have suggested?
Well, first of all, I'm more concerned, Vuyo, about the number of job losses that we will see in the city of Cape Town when Parliament does move out. So to me, it's not about whether the ANC govern Cape Town or the DA govern Cape Town. It is about, in the end, certainly that we need to make sure that we don't waste further money. Yes, of course there are political issues attached to this. It's been like this all the time. All of a sudden, the city of Cape Town is racist. When the ANC governed the city, it wasn't racist. When the ANC governed the Western Cape Province, it wasn't racist. So it is all of these political things that they are playing around. But I am saying I care about the lives of the people that will be disrupted because they will become unemployed when Parliament moves.
Let's move now, if you will, Mayor, to some of the hardcore political and, of course, election issues. Now, you were recently elected as the DA's mayoral candidate for Cape Town. They have called you their secret weapon. Are you sure that you're going to be able to hang on to Cape Town?
Vuyo, I believe that you do win elections in between elections in the 4 years and not a month or two before the elections. I'm very confident that over the past 4 years, I've grown into the job to be a mayor. I'm very humbled to serve the people of the city of Cape Town, and I've communicated on a daily basis. Now I will be going out to say to the people of Cape Town, thank you for lending your vote to us in 2011. This is what we have done with your vote. And ask them for another 5 years, because government, the wheels of government grind very, very slowly. I would have loved to do a lot more. And if granted that opportunity and people vote for me again, I will continue with the good work that we started in the city of Cape Town.
What good work are we talking about? What have you done that previous people in your position were never able to do?
Well, about 6 months ago, a National Treasury had issued a statement to say that the best package of services to the poor come from the city of Cape Town. In fact, the bouquet of services that we offered, National Treasury warned out that it might not become sustainable. But also the Monitoring and Evaluation Unit in the Office of President Jacob Zuma has also released yearly reports to show that Cape Town is the best run metropolitan in the city of Cape Town. We have come with very innovative ideas for you. If I can just give you an example of Extended Public Works Program. We received a prize from national government for creating the most jobs last year. We only received 20 million rand from national government to create the EPWP jobs. We then add another 120 million rand and don't only use EPWP jobs for cleaning and that. We use it to employ and train women to repair potholes. We use the money to train home-based carers to look after the elderly. We employ more than 2,000 people to clean our rivers. So that is being a very innovative project of EPWP that I'm very proud of. And we're also the only city in the country that are providing services to backyarders. And really, there's still a lot to be done. I will be the first to admit, and therefore I will be asking for a second term.
Well, but the allegation is still there that you are actually offering this service by and large to the rich, but also to suburbia. That is why a group like SONA says it will continue to throw poo for those services are not there where it matters.
They are talking absolute rubbish. You know, who will be so stupid to take government money and go and give it to rich people? In fact, the opposite is true. We charge all of those rich people to pay rates to us. We then take those rates and then we cross-subsidize services to the poor. The only thing that the people want the rich people want in their areas, they want to make sure that the streets are clean, that there are no potholes in their roads, and those are the services that we provide to everyone. So it is those Johnny-come-latelys who have not been involved in the struggle against apartheid. You know, those revolutionaries that joined the struggle after the 2nd of February 1990. Because if they were involved in the struggle, they would have known that Constantia was there before 1994, Bishop's Court was there, the Atlantic Seaboard was there. All of those areas were there. They were not built by government. They were built by people's private money. And if you go to the deeds office today and you go and see how many people from Johannesburg, from all over the country have bought houses in Cape Town, it will show you that people come here because we provide the best service.
Well, I mean, the assertion is that you have to dig deep into your taxpayers' coffers to make sure that those people in Constantia are very, very happy. And some people would take it even further to say, to make sure that they remain as racist as some of them are alleged to be.
You know, I can't believe that in this day and age that people could be so stupid to think that and even repeat a statement like that. Because that's based on the assumption that it's only white people that live in Constantia and Bishop's Court and all of that. You must find some time and do research and go and look at the title deeds of people in the city of Cape Town. You can see how, especially in the high upper market, how integrated Cape Town is because people can afford to buy houses there.
But is it really, Mayor? Is Cape Town really integrated?
I'm challenging anybody anywhere in the country that can come with any evidence to show that we are spending more in the rich areas than in the poorer areas. Because I can give you the proof that we are spending 67% of our budget on the poor every year. For you, and it's not me who's saying that. It's the Office of President Jacob Zuma. It's the Office of Treasury. It is other organizations who are measuring us that came to that conclusion. We are the best in the country. And so, because people are jealous, they fabricate the myth that, one, we are racist, two, that we are not giving services to the poor people, when in fact the proof is there. When you again in Cape Town, please, let's go around and let's make a comparison, and then you can see what I'm talking about.
Well, one thing that is not fabricated is Paul Harting awarding himself 70 million rands worth of contracts to himself, to his wife, and to his alleged girlfriend.
Yes, definitely. But the thing here, Vuyo, is that because of the systems that we have put in place, we were able to catch Harting. We got all the evidence together, and then we moved and we acted and we got him to be arrested, and he's now out on bail with his wife and with his girlfriend. We did it ourselves. It wasn't, somebody that discovered it. Just in the last financial year, we fired people for corruption. We fired more than 400 people in the city. And we've got a special ethics office that teach our employees every day that to steal is not worth the while. When you lose your job, you lose everything. So I'm proud to say that as the City of Cape Town, we caught Paul Harting ourselves and nobody else.
But what took you so long, and for a municipality that says it is the one that always shows everyone how to do it, how could this guy get away with it for so long, and living a life that he clearly could not afford on the salary that he was earning, driving around in an expensive car, buying properties? Why did it take so long for you to catch him? If your systems are so good.
These crooks are always one up for all of us. But we caught him in the end. And because our systems caught him. There's also another point, Vuyo. We rely on our employees to be honest, and they have to make a declaration if they are doing business with the city, that this is your wife or this is your sister or your daughter. He failed to make those declarations, and therefore we had not picked it up. But when we started investigating, we then found out, one, that he failed to declare, and secondly, he was part of the committee that made sure that, in fact, the business was diverted to his companies.
So no Harting and no amount of canvassing by other political parties, including the ANC, will stop the DA's runaway train.
No, I will never, ever take the voters for granted. I am going out there, like I've been doing for the past year, on a daily basis, to say to the voters, this is what we are busy with, this is what we are doing. So I will not, until after the election, say that we are going to walk it. No, you must never be so arrogant. You must never try and undermine the intelligence of the voters like the ANC is trying to do. The voters have got a lot more intelligence than the ANC, because I will never undermine their intelligence, because they know exactly what they want. They will vote for a party that can put a plan before them, that they can see that that plan will in fact help them to improve their own lives.